Hi everybody, this is Christine with you here today, and I'm going to do a little tutorial for you on how to make a really cute card using Brusho watercolor powders. You may or may not have heard of these. This is, of course I took the top off. This is a box of 12 watercolor powders that I got off Amazon, and the containers look like this. It's full of powder. And what you do with these powders is you can empty them into a little bowl and mix with water and have watercolors like normal, or you can sprinkle them on your paper, spritz them with water, and you get these really cool looking sort of splatter effects. I really love using them this way because it's just a really cool looking effect that you can't really get any other way with any other medium. And so I'm going to use the powders today to make a background for a card for a friend that I haven't seen in a while. So the supplies that I am going to use today are the Brusho powders in the dark brown, a little bit of orange, and a little tiny bit of yellow. I also need a spritzer bottle. This is a very old chloroseptic travel-sized. Used to have like sore throat spray in it, and I just washed it out really, really well and filled it with water. You want a mister, a sprayer that will give a very, very fine mist. You don't want huge water droplets, and you don't want a stream. You definitely want a fine mist. So I've got my water mister. I have a card base. This is pre-purchased. It came in a package with envelopes, and I just folded it already. This one is 6.5 inches long by 5 inches tall. I have a background piece of paper. I love this paper. It's so cute. I found it at Michael's. It's just Recollections scrapbook paper, and it has this cute little hello sentiment on the back. And I'm going to use this rectangle stitched die from Lawn Fawn. This is in their large rectangles set. It's the second largest one, in case you were curious about that. I'm also going to use this stamp from Sweet Stamp Shop called It's Been Ooh Long. So cute, I think, for contacting somebody that you haven't talked to in a while. So I'm going to use that stamp. So here's an acrylic block to stamp that with, and I'm going to be embossing that actually on my background with white embossing powder. So this is my embossing pad so that the powder only sticks to the ink, my embossing powder, and my Versamark stamp pad, which is really, really good for embossing. And then here, taped down to my craft mat, is just a piece of watercolor paper. And I've just used a little bit of washi tape to tape it down, just to keep it from bubbling and moving up too much. As soon as the water hits the paper, it is going to it may raise and kind of bubble in some areas, but I didn't want it to curl up and get really terribly misshapen. So that's why I taped it down here. And so that will work out well. So the first thing that I want to do is do a nice big area of the colors that I've chosen for my background, because then what I'm going to do is use the die to cut out the part that I really like. So if I cover most of this, I'll be able to kind of find a good spot where I really like what the background looks like, and I can choose that area to cut out for the front of my card. So here's what you do with these powders. I want primarily the background to be dark brown, and you can see, hopefully, that there are already sort of some orange and even green flecks in here, but I do want to play up the orange and maybe a little bit of yellow as it is. So I'm going to also sprinkle down a little bit of orange and a little bit of yellow. So this is primarily what the palette is going to look like. Mostly dark brown, because when I emboss with that white powder, I really want that to stand out, but I do want some areas where the yellow and the orange are a little bit more prevalent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pin out of the top of my containers. If you do buy these powders, you do not want to pull this little tab and take the top off. The easiest way to access the powder, and I saw this on one of Sandy Allnock's videos, is to punch a little hole in the top using a push pin and just leave that in there for storage. And then when you need the powder, all you have to do is shake it out. Okay, so you can see how I'm shaking here. You don't need hardly any. It's so potent. So that was the yellow and the orange. And now I'm gonna mostly cover with brown because I want a lot of brown. And I really do want to kind of get all over this paper. All right, that's about all you need. That might even be a little too much, we'll see. And then is the fun part. I'm just gonna take my water and start misting. And look at what happens here. It's so awesome. The more water you put, the more it kind of spreads around, the more that powders sort of run together. If you feel like an area is not covered enough, like for example right here, you can add a little bit more powder after the water is already on there. Okay. We put a little bit more orange in a couple of these spots. Oh, this is looking so cool. I just love this. All right, and I think that looks pretty good. Now, my friends, is the difficult part. You basically have to sit here and let it dry. So usually what I do, this paper that I'm using is a very smooth watercolor paper. I have a feeling that if you used one of those more bumpier ones, the water might soak in a little bit easier and not sit on top quite as much as it's doing here. But what I like to do since this paper is what I have and I'm just waiting to use up the pad of it, I'm going to let this all sit on here. You can see how the paper is bubbling up on the sides and creating sort of this trough, and that's okay. Even as we're sitting here, it's really soaking in. Okay, and then what I'm gonna do is plug in my heat embossing gun, which I need for later on anyway, and I'm going to kind of help it along a little bit. So let me go ahead and do that. All right, so at this point it's pretty dry. I can feel a little bit of gritty on top where some of that powder didn't quite activate with the water. And you can see where the water was heavier and it made puddles. Once it finally soaks into the paper, you get this really kind of cool marbled looking effect. Over here where it wasn't puddling so much, you get this really cool kind of sunburst, starburst effect. So I want to kind of look here and try to decide. I think this area might be good for my card. That's kind of cool, but it's not the effect that I want. I think I can save that part of the paper and use it for something else later. But yeah, I think something in this area is going to work nicely. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to untape this. And I want to cut it so that I can get it through my die cut machine. So I'm going to cut this about in half. And cut off the white edges over here that I know I'm not going to use. Let me see if that's wide enough to go through. I think it is. Okay. So let me move this out of the way. And let me get my die cutter. All right. And let's see. I think in order to make sure I have this placed exactly where I want it, I'm going to tape the die down. On this particular machine, you put the die up and then you put the, you know, the paper how you want it, and I can't, if I put it on upside down like this, I won't be able to see. So I think I'm going to go ahead and position it first. I think that might be a good spot. And I think I'll go back with a couple little pieces of washi and just tape this down. Yeah, like this. Actually, I hope that doesn't pull up the color. Nope. Okay. There we go. Okay, and then I can put my, oops, I can put my plates on and run this through. Okay. There you go, and it's perfectly cut out. Looks wonderful. And I will be, I'll be able to use, you know, parts of this little piece here and this piece here that I cut out for another project. So I'll just save those and keep those to the side. Okay. And now to sort of start assembling my card. Oh, I kind of like that, you guys. That's going to be really interesting looking. Let's see, I'm going to need some adhesive. I've got a roller adhesive right here. Let's see, do I want, I'm wondering if I'm going to want a larger white background behind that. I think that might be too big though. You'll lose all of the hellos, so that's not going to work. I was thinking about layering a piece of plain paper behind this, but I think I'll leave it how it is. No, I think I will cut a piece of paper. I just can't decide what I want to do. Okay, I'm going to take another piece of that same watercolor paper. And I'm going to cut it slightly larger than this cutout rectangle. And this is, let's see, this is 4.5 by 3 1/4. Let's see, 4.5 by 3 1/4. So how about if we do, 4 and, let me use this edge that's not torn. 4.5, let's say we do 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. Let's say we do that. And then we'll have an extra 1/2 inch, which will actually be an extra 1/4 of an inch all the way around. I'm going to use my paper trimmer here to cut that right there on those marks, and also here on this mark. There we go. And wow, that totally didn't work out right, did it? Hello, did I not measure correctly? Okay, Christine, 4.5 by 3 1/4. All right, let's try again. So instead of 4.5, I'm going to do 4 3/4. And instead of 3 1/2, no, 3 1/4, I'm going to do 3 1/2. How on earth did I get this wrong the last time, you guys? Let's test this to make sure this will work. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. All right. I blame Tuesday. I don't know about you, but I blame Tuesday. That sounds good, doesn't it? Blaming Tuesday. I mean, really, it's so close to Monday that really, I think Tuesday's at fault here. All right, let's try this again. So that's that. And that's that. And oh, so much better. There we go. All right. So I'm going to take my adhesive. This is just dot adhesive. And because this watercolor paper is a little bit bumpy here, I really want to make sure that I do a really good job of covering the back of this with as much as possible. Get all the edges. And then I just want to kind of position this as evenly as I can. It should be about an 1/8 inch or so on every side. That's a little bit tall at the top. Move this down a little bit. All right, so about like this. Okay. Now let's see, yeah, I think that's a little bit better. It's going to give it a little bit more of a frame. Okay, so now I'm going to put the holo paper on the front of my card base. This is just regular flat scrapbook paper, so I don't have to do anything super special with it. Just sort of make sure that it really lines up on the edges here. Okay, there we go. And then we're going to put that right there in the center, also with the adhesive. About like this. I'm just eyeballing it. You could get out your ruler and actually measure it if you wanted to. All right, so there you go. So there's that. And the last step now is to take my sentiment from Sweet Stamp Shop, and I'm going to stamp that on the front. I just bought this the last time I put it in an order, and it is so freaking cute. Sometimes it's, here we go. Okay, and let's see, do I want it right in the center? Do I want it kind of down in the corner? Do I want it over in the right corner? Do I want it right in the middle? I think right in the middle. I think right in the middle, okay? So when I emboss, I just have a scrap piece of paper folded in half that I put underneath to catch the powder when I'm done. And this little pad, this is sort of, it's like an anti-static pad, but I think it's got some like powder in it, flour or something, I don't know. But you basically, if you rub it on the surface you're going to emboss, it takes off any static or stickiness so that when you put down your ink and then when you sprinkle your embossing powder, the powder only sticks to your ink. It doesn't stick to anything else on the card, and then you don't have random little bits of powder that end up getting embossed everywhere. So let me take the top off of this to be ready. And let me give this stamp a really good inking up. Ooh, this is a big stamp, so it would be disastrous if I missed any of it. So I'm going to go over it several times here. This is Versamark. If you've never used this before, it's clear. It's meant for watermarking, but it's super sticky, so it's really great for embossing. All right, let me get this right here. It stays wet and sticky for a long time, so you don't have to be real in a rush to get it down and then sprinkle your powder. Let's sprinkle the powder on and see what we've got. Oh, this is the fun part, you guys. Also the nerve-wracking part. What if my image didn't come out well? What if it doesn't look good? Tap, 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 tap. OMG, look at that. Can you see that powder? That looks fantastic. So I tap it down, blow on it a little bit. Now I can take this folded piece of paper and refill my little baby tiny container. Let's go get in there, powder. Don't make a giant mess. Okay. Oh, most of it got in there. I see I spilled a little bit, but that's okay. That's not too much. I've done worse, believe me. And last thing to do is take the heat gun to it to get that embossing up. Oh my goodness. How much do I love this? I can't even tell you. And there it is, you guys, it's done just like that. Boom. This whole card took, what, 15, 20 minutes at the most, and it looks totally fabulous. I made it myself. My friend is going to love getting this, and this is a great way to stay in touch. It'd be great to just make up a bunch of these and then hang on to them for when you need it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little tutorial about Brusho powders and how easy it is to make a quick card with them, and I'll see you back here next time. Bye, everybody.